What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode, and today we're working on 2003 350Z. It's got several problems with it, so without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, here's our next patient. We got a 2003 350Z with a Greddy twin turbo kit in it. So customer purchased this car, didn't really know anything about it, but it definitely did not drive like it has two turbos in it. So he brought it over, asked us to look over it to see what we find, and we kind of jumped into it to check out what's wrong with the car. So it definitely doesn't drive like it has any kind of boost in it. When plugging this vehicle in, it definitely didn't have any tune on it. So that's something that has to be addressed. Other than that, the car is very clean. Oh, this door is locked. So other than that, the car is very clean. We went through it and checked the compression, checked for boost leaks. Compression was good. It was 150 all the way across. Had a couple minor few boost leaks, so we went ahead, took care of those, took the car for a ride. Felt a little better, but still, obviously it needs a tune. This is what we're going to be addressing sometime later in the next video, but for today, we did find a couple problems. First, we're going to get started on today is we had our valve covers. Both sides are leaking. So on this VQ motor, usually around 100,000 miles, they started to leak, and the tubes where the spark plugs sit, the oil starts seeping onto the spark plug. So we're going to jump into it. So we got new covers that we're going to be replacing along with a couple new gaskets for the intake manifold. We also going to be doing some differential bushings. As you know, the rear differential bushing, it's a fluid filled bushing, and a lot of times they get torn up and all the fluid leaks out. So this has the same issue. So we got some new bushings for it and some new lower bolt joints for the front of the car. So here's our new parts right over here. This is OEM covers. We got some new gaskets. We also got some Z1 Motorsports polyurethane bushings, spark plugs. So currently right now we have a original spark plugs installed, which the motor calls out for the OEM. So we got a one step colder plug. We also got some new gaskets because we do have to remove our drive shaft and exhaust for our differential bushings, because we got to pull the diff out to replace these. Here are our new bolt joints. We also got several silicone couplers that we need to replace, and I'll show you why. This car was in the front end collision, and whoever fixed it did an okay job, I guess. But that's what we got. Check it out. So we got on this side, we got a PVC pipe from Home Depot along with water couplers that you can get at Home Depot. So we definitely have to get rid of this. And on this side, this is where your both pipes come from, the turbos, and this one is also from Home Depot. So we're going to be getting rid of that and installing Z1 Motorsports 4-ply boots on this side. And I went ahead, so originally I think the Greddy kit comes with a small elbow that's supposed to be going in here to connect to your pipe that goes up to the intake. So I went ahead and made this 90-degree elbow, rolled two beads on it. So this is going to be going right over here instead of our PVC pipe. Should be a lot better. We're also going to be fixing this. This is for your windshield wiper fluid. It was kind of just hanging there. Currently I just have a zip tie so it doesn't fall on the floor. I know one ear is broken off, so we're going to have to figure something out, but somehow we'll be putting this over here so it's nice and sturdy. Probably going to be redoing some of these brackets right over here just to make it a little bit nicer. And then the bottom doesn't have anything holding it, so we definitely have to make something for the bottom to hold this intercooler so it doesn't vibrate while he's driving. Also, whenever this kit originally came out, you have this nipple right here on this is your left hand turbine intake pipe. So one of your valve cover tubes that comes out of the back of the motor, I'll show you on this one right here, it's easier to see. So this is our left hand cover, and this back vent tube is actually sitting like this. So anyway, what they have you do is route that to your intake pipe, which kind of doesn't make any sense, because all your blow by is getting sucked in and it goes right into the turbo, and then you have a whole bunch of mess sitting there leaking all over the place. So we end up capping this off and running some nice hoses right over here. So both of them are going to be coming out here, and we're going to be installing a catch can. It does have a catch can, and it was kind of just zip tied in the corner right over here. So what I'm going to do is make a bracket that's going to be sitting something like this, something like that, and then we're going to hook up our hoses. So we're no longer going to have blow by going back into the turbo and then getting burned, and so on and so forth. So first thing I want to do is tackle these valve covers, get them replaced, get the correct spark plugs installed, and then we're going to go after our differential bushings and our lower control bolt joints. And after all that is done, we're going to do another smoke test, make sure we have no boost leaks, or no vacuum leaks I should say. And if all is good, then we're going to be going on to the dyno at some point. And before we're going to do that, we do have to upgrade our MEF sensor to UpRev GT sensor, which I'm going to order that shortly. So we'll have that all set up once we go to the dyno. But other than that, the car's very clean. It does have a Greddy exhaust, which is super nice. Whoever had this car definitely put some money into it, but it does need tuned. So without further ado, let me get started on it. We're going to start tearing into this engine and replacing the valve covers first. Let's do it. Alright boys, we're ready to pull these covers off. Just want to show you, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but there's oil residue. And this is me, I already went ahead and cleaned this earlier, the first time I had this apart looking at the spark plugs or whatever. But there's oil residue, you can see it's sitting right there. This one's dry, that one's wet, right over there. And then we got a little bit on this one. You guys see it, but it's hard to do with a flashlight. But anyway, this one's wet, this one is also wet, and that one is somewhat okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling this off, and we're gonna go ahead and replace them. Alright boys, everything is cleaned up now. I went ahead and cleaned the surface, degreased the surface. We cleaned the little RTV that OEM puts in both corners of the head right here. So we're going to put a little bit in here. If you guys are doing it, just make sure to put a little bit of RTV gasket maker right in both corners. That's what they recommend. And make sure your surface is clean. And in case you're wondering, the reason we're changing the whole valve cover is because these, so this is our problem on the one we just removed. Our tubes are leaking and the oil is seeping into the spark plug. So these guys are not removable, and that is the reason we're changing the whole valve cover. So I'm going to go ahead and put some RTV down in both of these corners right now, up there and up down here. And then we're gonna nicely reinstall this cover. So let's do it. And when you guys are installing this, you just want to make sure and verify that the seal did not roll in itself or fell out of the groove, because it will be leaking. And these things are a pain in the butt to get them to fall in there, or to get them to stay in there. So what I do when they come out of the box, I usually just let them sit in the groove for a little while, and then I'll just hit them with a little heat gun, warm them up, so that way they can take better shape and fit in there a lot better and not fall out when you guys install them. I know some people try to use tape or a fishing line, but I think this is the most effective way. Just let them sit in there and rest, heat them up a couple times, that way they're 100% in there and secured. So we're all seated all the way around. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start putting the bolts in, and then there's a sequence to this, how we're going to torque it, and so we're just going to get to it. Alright guys, so the first set of torques is going to be from 9 to 26 inch-pounds, and there's a sequence to this thing. So we're just gonna go to first set, we're just gonna do 30. Went ahead and got them all started. So now we're just gonna slowly start torquing them. So this is gonna be your number 1. It's gonna be second bolt from the front. 1. This is gonna be your 2. Service manual will have that sequence, or you guys can just look online and find out that way. Alright, so the first set of torques are down 1 to 30 inch-pounds. Make sure it's 30 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. And the second one is range from 65 to 82 inch-pounds. So we're just going to go to 80, make it easier. And you're going to follow the same exact sequence. And here you go guys, the first one is done. So we're going to do exactly the same thing to the other side. Repeat the same process, same torque. and then we're going to start reassembling everything else. The right hand cover is done now. It's installed and it's been torqued, so everything looks good. Just want to reiterate again, just make sure you guys pay attention to your seal and make sure it doesn't slip off or fall out of groove. Otherwise you guys will have a leak. And like I said, you can heat it up a little bit and that will take shape of this cover a little better than what it is when it comes out of the box. So now that both are reinstalled, and before I'm going to start putting the intake plenum back on, I'm going to replace the spark plugs. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to go and install one step colder plug. So these are NGKRs, and this is going to be the 6A instead of 5A. So I went ahead and gapped them to 35 thousandths. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull these all out, put fresh ones in, and then start putting everything back together. Alright boys, I just went and cleaned this planner up a little bit. I did this one and the lower one, or the mid one I should say. The one that we're going to be installing it here in a little bit. Since we should not have any more blow-by going into the intake manifold. So it should be nice and clean. And the surface area doesn't look too bad. There's not a lot of, there's no corrosion, I should say. So I'm just going to wipe it off. And we're going to start putting this cover back on. When you guys are reinstalling this, as you can notice, there's an arrow. So that's going to be your forward. Oops, upside down. There we go. So this is going to point forward, and you cannot put this upside down. I guess it doesn't really matter. They're both the same, unless, yeah, both grooves are the same. But there's an arrow that points forward, so that's the way you're going to put that in. Next up is our intake plenum right over here. So that's going to go on next. I went ahead and cleaned this one too. So, oops. So this is nice and clean now. So what we're going to do next is put this cover on, or next is this gasket. Same deal. There's an arrow right over here up front. So you can't really mess this up. It only goes on one way. Here's our plate, and this one also has an arrow on it. So we'll show you exactly which way you gotta install that. And these guys, you're going to torque them to 114 inch-pounds in the sequence, starting from, I believe, this middle one right over here. So this is going to be actually the start one. So it's going to be 1. 2, 3, 4 is up front. This is 5. 6. We'll see which one's the front. And the 2 nuts are going to be 7, and then 8 is going to be all the way in the back. And there you have it, the middle one's installed. Now I'm going to put this tube that connects two valve covers next. Then I'm going to run the harness back up and around, clean up some of these cannon plugs. They got a little bit of oil residue on them. And then we're going to go ahead and reinstall our upper plenum. Alright guys, most of our stuff's reinstalled. Now we're going to go ahead and start putting on our bolts for our upper plenum. And just to show you, so the aft bolts right over here on the back side, they're a little bit longer, so just make sure you don't mess that up and try to drive them into the front side. You'll see it's significantly different between two. And just in case, if you guys have any corrosion on the threads when you pull them out, make sure you clean it off, just so whenever you go ahead and torque it, you're actually going to hit your torque instead of them, you know, binding up inside, and then you think you actually torqued it, but it's not up to correct spec. So we had a couple bolts that had a little bit of corrosion. Went ahead and cleaned them up. So now we can start putting them in. Unless, of course, you guys are putting in the new bolts, then there should be no problem with that. So we got 4 long bolts. It's going to be these 3 and 1 right over here, and then we got 2 shorter ones, or 3 shorter ones, and then the rest all the way around are the same length. There's also a sequence for this one, so we're going to follow it. These are also going to be 114. Here we go. And I'm just going to go around one more time just to be safe. Make sure they all torqued. Boys, we got everything backed in and together, hooked up, ready to get this thing fired up. Like I said, this is just a for the catch can. This is going to stay off until I make a bracket. So that's on pause for a second, but everything else is hooked up. The wire harness is in. So what I'm going to do right now is get this thing fired up, and make sure our valve covers are all good. Flashlight. I'm gonna let this thing idle for a little while, and I'm just gonna stick a mirror all the way around, check it out. I know it's very hard to see on camera, it's so packed in here. So let me double check all this stuff and I'll get back to you. I'll let that thing do a full heat cycle, and I'm happy to say there is no leak, so we're all good on that part. So one last thing to do in the engine bay is put the strut bar across, and we should be all good with our valve cover job. And then tomorrow I'm gonna hop into the couplers. I know we're still waiting on one of them. It should be here in a few days, so that's no big deal. And then we're gonna do our lower control bolt joints along with the differential bushing on the back side, as I already showed you. We got some sitting right over here ready to rock and roll. So that's what we're gonna dive into tomorrow. I don't want to stretch this video on forever, so for tonight I'm gonna call it a day, and we'll pick up back tomorrow morning. But with this being said, thank you for watching, guys. Hit like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'm gonna see you next time. Take it easy.